All right. Thanks, Rebecca. So we've got, I am looking at the chat. I can see it. Rebecca is going to kind of watch that for me. So everybody should be able to put items in the chat at this point. Um, a few of you I've seen have put in good morning. If you want to do that, that's not a bad idea, just so you know the chat is functioning for you. Um, and there's Rebecca saying good morning with a little happy face. Lovely. So we are recording. So if you're just coming in, just know that we are recording. That's so that we can share this with other candidates or other people that are interested in the position later. So, but be aware that it's being recorded because we are a state agency. This could potentially be a public document. So just know that this is a public thing. All right. So today's plan. So make sure you're in the right place. So this is the open house for the workforce analyst positions. Those also known as Economist 1. We have 3 of those open. If that's not what you're here for, then you're probably in the wrong place. But I think everybody should be okay. All right. So we'll do team introductions. Come in. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the plan. So don't start introducing yet, team. So team introductions, and then I'll do a quick overview of what the employment department is, and then we'll go into more detail about the workforce analyst positions. Talk about what a workforce analyst does, how we do it, and then we'll have some Q&A there. And again, we have workforce analysts here in the room that will answer questions. Then also I'll talk a little bit about the application process itself, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. After that, we do have some kind of quick tips for applying for state jobs and any questions you have about the process, and then kind of a wrap up final thing. Rebecca, this is the first time Rebecca and I have ever done this together. So pardon us if I look at Rebecca and ask questions in the middle of it. So Rebecca, you're watching the chat, right? So I'm going to start ignoring the chat as I go through the slides. Okay. Oh, and she's got herself muted.
Perfectly fine. Yep.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. So let's introduce the team. So I am Dave Nelson. I am the Regional Analysis Manager is my title, but really what you need to know is I am the hiring manager and the supervisor for these positions. So if you are hired, you would be hired by me, and I would be your manager if you're hired. And then actually, I have it up on the screen, but why don't you guys unmute as I go through and just introduce yourselves real quick. So Nicole.
Hello, everyone. Nicole Ramos. I'm the regional economist for for the East Cascades. Excuse me, I forgot for a minute. Which includes the Columbia Board, South Central Oregon, and Central Oregon. But I used to be the WA for the Mid Valley, and then the WA for the East Cascades.
Right.
So that's what I'm.
All right, thank you. Oh, and I just realized, so we try not to use acronyms, but we will say WA often. So since we're going to be talking about the workforce analyst position, we're just going to say WA for workforce analysts. All right, and next is Sean.
Hey everybody, my name's Sean Barrick. I'm the regional economist for Northwest Oregon. I've been the workforce analyst for Northwest Oregon for the last 3.5 years. I live up in Astoria and look forward to talking about the WA job with y'all.
And
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brannigan Vogt. I'm the workforce analyst for Washington County, and I've been in the role for about 1 year now.
Okay. And go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, folks. My name is Rebecca Rodas, she, her, ella pronouns, and I work in the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and I am the liaison that supports research. And I've been at OED for just under 3 years now.
All right. Thank you. And then we have one other person that will be coming in a little bit later is Cindy Walling. I don't think Cindy is in yet. Have you seen her pop in, Rebecca?
No, I think
She'll be coming in later.
Yeah, she'll be coming in later.
Okay. And she is our HR recruiter. So she's the pro about the general process for applying for the positions. All right. So really quick, so the employment department, just want to go over our values really quick. These are not things that we just threw up there. This took actually arriving at these values was about a 1.5 year process where everybody in the agency contributed a few years ago. So we focus on, and our values are related to integrity. We want to be honest. We're here to serve. We want to be responsible and accountable, and we're always seeking opportunities to learn. We respect others, ourselves, our staff, customers, partners. We want to promote an inclusive environment. We always assume good intent, and we treat each other with courtesy and compassion. And community, we foster a sense of belonging and strive for accessibility and engagement to create positive impacts where we live and work. Basically, we are here to serve Oregonians, and that's what we do. All right. So really quick to talk about the workforce analyst positions, and this is kind of like the context slide. So this is a state of Oregon position. So it is a state, you would be a state employee working for the Oregon Employment Department. The Oregon Employment Department's mission is to support business and promote employment. I'm not going to read, by the way, these whole slides. This will be posted, so you'll be able to go through these slides a little bit slower yourself later if you'd like. Within the Employment Department, there is the Workforce and Economic Research Division, which is about 52 people. Our motto is quality information for informed choices. I didn't put that on there. qualityinfo.org. I'll mention that many times. That's our primary website where we deliver labor market information to the world. Within Workforce and Economic Research, there is a group called the Regional Analysis Group. This is basically 17 economists that work in the field, meaning they don't work in the capital city, Salem. They work all over the state. And that group, we live and work in the areas that we cover. So they have geographic assignments, and they cover parts of the state. We actually have 2 layers of economists that cover the whole state, the regional economists and the workforce analysts. Today, we're just going to talk about the workforce analyst group or the workforce analyst team. There are 10 positions. There are actually currently only 7 people working in those positions. We have 3 openings, and that's what this is all about, is trying to fill those 3 spots. Again, I'm not going to read all of this, but this is the basic information about the position. Again, workforce analyst is the working title. It's an economist position. So this is an economist position. This is not just a person who does. We're going to talk a lot about the work that they do, but the gist of it is, the core of this is you are an economist who provides economic data. All right. There's the rec number. It is full-time permanent. Those positions are open. The posting closes on Monday, this coming Monday at midnight. Shows the salary, classifications, working title. So I'll get in more information on this later, but this is a hybrid remote position, which means you would be able to work from home or from a OED office. I will say generally for newer staff, we prefer that they work in an office for a while and then transition into homework, hybrid work after they've gotten to know their coworkers and are well established in the office. But eventually you would be able to work from home as well. And I'll talk a little bit more later. That doesn't mean you can do this job from anywhere. You have to live and work in the area that you're going to be assigned to in order to cover this position. Okay. And then you apply through the Workday system. All right. So our focus this is for the research division. We are all about quality information and informed choices. So we put out data, economic data. We'll also call it labor market information because it is focused on the labor market. And our goal is to put data out there into the world so that Oregonians can make better economic decisions. That's the economics component of that. I'm going to pull my screen here a little bit. There we go. So the kind of real focus for the workforce analyst position exactly is that we want to make labor market information more accessible, more understandable, and more actionable for our customers. So basically, we make sure we get the data into their hands, we make sure they understand it, and then we help them make decisions based on that. We don't, however, make decisions for you. Right, here is the team. This is the current set of workforce analysts that are out there. Won't go into that, but is the main thing to get from this is that you see the geographic areas that are that they cover. I'll kind of show you here. So the openings are the East Cascades or Central Oregon, which is the northern 6 or 8. 8? Nicole, how many are there in the upper group? 8? 8 counties. Okay, shaking her head. All right, thank you. And then the Mid Valley, which are the 4 here, it's Marion, Polk, Yamhill, and Lynn counties. And then the Northwest, which is Clatsop, Columbia, Tillamook, Lincoln, and Benton counties. All right. So what does workforce analysts do? Again, I'm not going to read this whole slide, but I will kind of hit the highlights. Again, they deliver reliable workforce information to Oregonians. We are focused on giving data to businesses. That's our primary customer. That's because the positions were actually created at the request of businesses. A group of businesses in Oregon came to the Oregon Employment Department director and said, you need to create positions for people who will explain all of this data to us so we can use it. So that's what we do. We create these customized reports for customers. We write articles. We deliver presentations to community groups. We connect customers and explain how to use qualityinfo.org. Right there. We communicate frequently with other economists and our partners about what we're doing. And we create an environment where everybody feels valued, respected, recognized, and appreciated. Basically, we try to create a really positive work environment. Oh, and I just saw in the chat, Sean put the link for qualityinfo.org. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. All right, and how do we do this? Well, we do it both in person and online. We take the time to serve the customer directly, but also we spend time just reading about the latest economic data. So we try to maintain our expertise. We are the experts on the labor market in the areas that we cover. Again, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. We'll come back to some of this, and this will, again, the slide deck will be available. Recently, we've done presentations with economic updates for Deschutes County, for Deschutes Title Company. We did a presentation for the Oregon Commission for the Blind. On the South Coast, the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors came down there, and we did a presentation there. And in the Mid Valley, we also did a presentation just for the WorkSource Oregon staff. Data requests do a lot of that. So housing trends, labor force participation by gender, geocoded employment data. Wage data is always popular. Unemployment, employment, labor force data for the Oregon City Economic Development Commission, data on nonprofit employment in Northwest Oregon. So this is just a very quick sample of the stuff that we do. We do thousands of data requests per year. The team does as a group. So, all right. So really quick, I'll cover location. So once hired, these positions, you would have to live and work in the area that you cover. So if you apply and you are hired for the Northwest Oregon position, you would have to live, meaning your residence would have to be in one of those 5 counties. So Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, Lincoln, and Benton. Did I get those right, Brannigan? Okay, cool. Or I'm sorry, Sean. So you have to live there. However, you can eventually work from home in that area. So you have to live in the area, but you can work from home. I will provide an office space, though. If you would prefer to work in an office, we will have office space for you. So we kind of leave that up to the person who's hired to decide how they most want to work. All right. Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat that you're open to move, so that's great. If if you don't live in the area that you're hired for, you would need to move there eventually. I do give people about 3 to 6 months to do that. So it's not like you have to move immediately. That's not a real thing, but you do need to move eventually. All right. All right, so minimum qualifications. For the economist one, again, this is an economist position. So you have to demonstrate that you meet these required minimum qualifications in order to move forward in the process. So to qualify, you have to have either a bachelor's degree in economics. I'm holding my thumb up here, but it's too low. There we go. A bachelor's degree in economics or a related degree. Related degree is a little bit open. I realize that's might be flexible, but there's a little bit more information coming up on what that means exactly. So if you do not have a bachelor's degree of any kind, then you can't qualify for this position. It's just the way they're written. That's just the way it is. I certainly am open for debate on whether or not that's a good idea, but that is how it is. You have to have a bachelor's degree in order to qualify. Right. And then so then to move forward in the process, you'd want to meet the minimum qualifications, but also meet the desired attributes for the position. And this is what we're looking for in the interview process. We generally give preference to those. So to go to what a related degree is, generally, if you have any degree, but you have 3 or more courses in economics with a grade of B or higher, then that would boost your standing as far as moving forward in the process. If you have never had an econ class, then it would be very difficult for you to move forward, to be honest. Again, these are economist positions, and you have to have had economics in order to be an economist generally. So, right? We look for broad understanding of economic concepts. You have to be collaborative. These are positions where you spend a lot of time working and talking to other people. So you need to be good at that. You need to be able to present information both in one-on-one and online. But you do have to do this job both in person and online, both. Which is another reason for you living in the area, because you have to go meet your customers face to face. That is part of the position. You have to be able to explain complex concepts to people who haven't had economics. So you have to explain how the wage data is calculated. You have to explain how we do estimates of employment. You have to be able to help people who are not economists and aren't trained in this to understand what that data is. Again, the goal is to help them understand it so that they can then make their own economic decision, because they understand their decisions a lot better than you do or we do, but they don't necessarily understand the data. So we explain the data and how it applies to what they're trying to decide, and then we help them educate them on those things so that they can then make their own decisions. So again, you have to be able to communicate well. We do a lot of writing as well, either just via email to customers, but also we write articles for qualityinfo.org. A lot of writing involved in this position as well. And you have to be committed to valuing diversity and promoting inclusion. We serve all Oregonians equally. So if you aren't committed to valuing everybody equally, then that will be a difficult thing for you to do, because you have to serve everybody. Everybody pays the same, and everybody participates. Everybody in Oregon is a customer. All right. Right. Really quick, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but here's the general timeline for the recruitment. So again, the position closes at midnight on Monday. We'll screen the applications, score the original ones. We'll do an initial cutoff. We'll send out a written assessment that will need to be back. Then we're aiming to do invite maybe 17 or so candidates to the first round of interviews, which will be October 10th. And those interviews will be for all 3 positions. That's going to be a single interview for all of them, regardless of where you're focused on. And then on October 16th, we'll invite 9 candidates to the second round of interviews. There'll be a second set. Those will be set out by location. So for the Central Oregon position, we will do an interview. For another one on November 3rd, Mid-Valley interview, and then on November 7th, a Northwest Oregon interview. You'll notice those are really packed tightly. I know that a number of you have applied for all 3 positions. If you were successful, it's possible that you might be invited to all 3 of these interviews. And so at that point, you could accept all 3. So that's would be 3 interviews in a week's time. The reason I compress them like this and do them so quickly is that because I will have candidates that have applied for multiple locations, I really need to make the final decision on hiring for all 3 at the same time. Because if somebody's applied for multiple positions, I need to know where they want to go. Okay. After we do that second round of interviews for the top candidate, we will do reference checks, background checks, pay equity, which is how we determine what the salary will be offered is. And then the target is that around November 17th, I will be making job offers for 3 positions. Okay. I went through that really quick. I'll do a real quick check. Rebecca, anything in the chat that I should cover?
Yeah, folks are
We do
just
that later.
asking a little bit. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
My good. Okay, yeah. Folks are just asking around the econ courses. You can either take those questions now
Okay.
or
Yeah, I can address that really quick. Is
yeah.
if you want to know what is an econ course. So an econ course is ideally it's a course that says econ something, right? So econ 101, econ 403. So it's a course that is in the from the economics department from the university. I am open to coursework. Sometimes business majors will take courses in. It'll be something like international trade and economics. So if there's economics in the title of the course, I'm open to that. That is something that if you think that you have 3 courses that apply, then you would contact me and I would ask for your transcripts. And then we would determine at that point if those would meet the qualifications or not. Okay. I think I addressed that really quick. And then later on, we'll talk about there is a way for you to send an email to ask further questions. And for this thing today, we do need to kind of keep it for more general questions, something that everybody would be interested in. I can't answer specific situation for everybody today, but happy to do that later as we go through. All right. Okay, so the interview process itself will have 4 phases. I kind of went through that really quick. So your initial application, we do a written assessment that I send out essay questions we do that via email. You'll get about a week to respond to those. Then we do the first interview. That's about 20 minutes. All the interviews will be online. We aren't doing in-person interviews since before 2020. And you probably know why. So 20-minute interviews for the first round. Second round interview is about 80 minutes. That would include some Excel written analysis exercise. We'll have you do a 10 to 12 minute presentation on an economic topic. And then we'll do Q&A where we'll just ask you questions like a regular interview. All right. That's my spiel. 27 minutes, not too bad. I was trying to get it to under 20, but I think I got 25. So now we can open it up. I think, let's see, I don't know, Rebecca, what is the best way for people to ask questions at this point? Should they unmute and ask, or what should we do?
Yeah, I think right now would be a good transition to maybe some staff highlights. Like if they wanted to share a little bit about their experience. I put a little order in our run of show if folks want to look at that right now, and then have an opportunity to share really briefly. That way we can leave a good amount of time for Q&A, maybe the last like 15 minutes at least for Q&A. So yeah, but I think it would be nice for applicants and candidates or prospective candidates to hear a little bit about what it's like from those in current position or previous held positions.
Okay, so let's just go in the order on the screen there. Brannigan, do you want to do just like a minute and a half on, or a minute or so on what it's like to be a workforce analyst?
Yeah. So yeah, being a workforce analyst, yeah, it's an economist position. But like Dave mentioned, this entire program was created to meet the needs of businesses, first and foremost. So it's a customer service role, at its core as well. You're really a customer-facing economist. And at the Oregon Employment Department, we're creating economic data, but as a workforce analyst, you're not preoccupied with that. You're actually serving as the link between the data and the data user. So you need to, with training in the role, you will become an expert in the labor market data that we have and that we use from other sources like Census and BEA and BLS. And then you can explain that data and provide it to those who use it to make decisions. And along with businesses, there's other customers as well, like city leaders that you'll work with, economic development managers, and even within the department at the Worksource Center, where job seekers go and get services provided to them, we can work with them as well. So there's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of maintaining relationships with others, not just in our team, but external partners and customers. And that's sort of the main thing that I think might not be obvious with the name economist, is that this role is very much a customer service and relational type of position.
Great. Thanks, Brannigan. I do in the chat, I do want to really quick address somebody had asked about the preferences. So the coursework, it's just a course in economics with the related economics with a grade. So if you audited and didn't get a grade, that won't work. But if you took and completed a course and got a grade and that course is related to economics, then that could count. And then as far as, again, the degree, earlier I saw one about social science degree, that applies as long as you have the 3 courses in economics. All right, sorry to jump in there. Sean, go ahead.
Hey everyone, Sean Barrett, Northwest Oregon again over here. Yeah, the WA role, I have really enjoyed doing that job over the last 3 years. I find it to be a really nice mix of deliverables where you have things every month that you have to do, either writing articles, we send out lists of economic indicators, presentations that are just where you make regular appearances, as well as a lot of free time to do your own research, to spend time learning more about the region you cover, and then answering data requests and stuff like that. So you really get to kind of manage yourself, which is really nice for some people. Sometimes it can be a little tough to stay focused if you aren't self-motivated. Yeah, I have found this job to be, very satisfying when you help a customer access or understand information where people are working on grants for their business or nonprofits, and you help provide the data that gives context to the story that they're trying to tell. And then you see that in your own community, and that can be super satisfying. And the other super cliche thing that I have loved about this job is that you get to work with so many awesome people in your communities, and you really feel like you make a difference because um, when you spend all your time, at least 40 hours a week, studying the labor market in your region, you really do become an expert, and it's things that people kind of, I don't know, sometimes I can take it for granted at times because we're so familiar with it, but it really is pretty foreign to a lot of people, the information that we're sharing. So that's super, super fun and helpful. Um, yeah, I think that's my little spiel. Dave, you're muted.
Thank you. That's why Nicole was doing this. But yeah, sorry. I'm watching the chat, so we'll address some of those questions in the chat. But let's go ahead and have Nicole talk about her previous experience as a workforce analyst and what she's doing now a little bit.
Yeah, again, Nicole Ramos. I've actually been with the Oregon Employment Department 4 years, I think, around 4 years now. And my experience as a workforce analyst was fantastic. It was great. I loved it. I love my role right now, but I also loved being a workforce analyst. Because of the things Sean and Brannigan said, biggest thing for me is that you really, you become part of the community in a way where you're, encouraging others to promote growth. And you, in that sense, you make a difference. One of the things that I loved about the position, as I said before, is kind of the freedom, right? The freedom to look at the data and analyze it and to look at other sources in your area, the freedom to get to write certain topics, right? You get to pick certain topics for articles. I love that. Sometimes you get to specialize in the subject. For instance, Sean does agriculture right now, I believe. Is one of the things that he specializes in. So it was just something that I really, really enjoyed. Another part was traveling. These areas are quite big. So you travel quite a bit. So if you're not comfortable with traveling, maybe it's not like the best position for you. I know I did a lot of traveling, but I was the workforce analyst for 2 areas. So that's a little different. But I enjoy traveling, right? And that's part of giving those presentations because of a lot of businesses and not only businesses, schools ask for presentations and stuff where you have to go live. So I enjoyed that a lot. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I'm watching the chat. And thank you. I see Sean and Brannigan. If you see something in the chat, you can reply to, go for it. You guys know the answers as well as I do. Thank you, Sean, for jumping in there on at least 1 or 2 of them. Let's see, I will address really quick. There's one about what are data sources that we use. Basically, we have kind of an approach where we really look for quality data. There is tons of data out there. As I'm sure all of you know, there's lots and lots of data in this world now, but not all of it is quality. Because we are public economists, we are honestly a little more careful. We tend to only use data sources that we know have good methodology, and that's what we do. Is we look at the methodology that they used and evaluate whether or not this is high quality data based on the processes that they use. And then that's what we use as our data sources. We do not have a list of data sources that you can use and lists that you can't use. We don't really do it that way. But we talk with each other a lot. Also, we have a hierarchy of economists. So we have economist 1s, we have economist 2s, 3s, and 4s. We have one economist 4 who is kind of like the decider. So basically what Gail says is good, then that's good. And if Gail says that's not good, then we don't use that. So and but generally it's a consensus among the economists as to whether or not something is a good data source or not. Let's see. Okay. So I guess if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, we can do that. And if we get multiples, I'll figure that out. Oh, that's great. Will Underwood, I see, raised his hand. That's great. Thank you. And then James, so let's go Will and then James. Go ahead, Will. You can unmute and ask your question.
Sure. Yeah. So one of my favorite courses I took in my degree was a rural economic development class, and we really dug into like the differences between local economies. So I know that the three different regions are in pretty different places. Can you talk a little bit about the differences in the labor markets in those 3 places?
That's a great question. And the answer is I could, but I'm going to actually ask Nicole to talk about that really quick. Now, Nicole has the unique background of she's in Central Oregon, so she can talk about that economy. She used to be the Mid-Valley WA. She can talk about that one. And then maybe Sean can talk really quick about Northwest. But I think I will throw out the gist of your question really gets to why we have people living and working in the areas, because that creates much higher quality analysis because we actually know the local economy because we live there. So Nicole, you want to talk about how those things can be different?
Absolutely. I would say every region is different, and no 2 regions are the same. They might be similar, but for instance, when I think about when I think about the Mid-Valley, right? The Mid-Valley is very different than Central Oregon in the sense that Mid-Valley, has a lot, or Central Oregon is a bit more rural, right? And Mid-Valley is not that rural, and Central Oregon is. Although Central Oregon has a very a robust growing economy still now, I would say, well, that's a different topic. Has a robust growing economy, and it's been growing, and it's been one of the strongest growing, right? But in terms of numbers, those numbers aren't as large, let's say, as the Mid-Valley. So there are also different needs. The businesses have different needs as well. Whereas I suppose like businesses in Central Oregon are really, really focused on trying to get that MSA development going, expanding the urban growth boundaries, right? Bringing in more growth in the areas near Bend, which is the central city, right? So like in Prineville and Sisters and stuff like that, trying to encourage that growth to just encourage overall growth in the area. Well, the Mid-Valley didn't necessarily have that kind of strong focus on its rural community and trying to really develop that community, because in a sense it's already much more developed, right? So that's just like one of the things. If I think about Sean's area, I would say that's a totally different economy just because of the ocean, right? How it's tied to
Right.
that kind of travel industry. It's similar to Bend in that there's a lot of like travel and leisure and
Tourism,
hospitality in the area and stuff like that. But again, I can't speak to Sean's area, but just from the outside looking in is kind of what I see. So absolutely, no two regions are the same. You really become an expert in your region, and sometimes you do have to become like a little expert in other regions, because you'll have customers ask you like, okay, compare it. Like, what's a good comparative? Because comparatives are important for the customers. But in that case, you can work with the individual. Like I would work with Sean and say, hey, Sean, can you give me some information? And then go from there. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great answer. It's just fascinating.
great. Thanks. So actually, in the interest of time, I think we kind of got to what you needed, Will, on that one. So Sean, you can talk about Northwest later. Sorry. So let's go to James. Go ahead, James.
Yes, hi, good morning. My question is, how much, as far as this role is concerned, uh, does previous workforce development work or experience play a role in consideration for this role?
Yep.
For example, internships with WorkSource Oregon as a
Right.
business and employment
Right.
specialist. Does that play any type of weight with consideration?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of different experience backgrounds that can feed into this, because I mean this is basically, it's a position that you have economics, you understand economic development, you understand the labor market, you understand how businesses seek and hire people. There's a wide variety of backgrounds that can feed into this. And I have hired people from all kinds of different backgrounds, because I like to have people on the team that have different backgrounds, because then as a team we educate each other about the areas where we kind of have specialties. At the moment, Nicole is actually literally sitting in the economic development for Central Oregon office. So we connect with economic development. We connect with the WorkSource boards, the workforce development boards. So all of that is helpful to come in. So when I am looking for is somebody that can have as much of that general understanding as possible. I also will say we have a very robust training system and program. It's about a year and a half to train people up. And Brannigan later can talk about that. He's in the middle of that new training, having been here just slightly less than a year. So he can talk about that as well later. But yeah, absolutely. Workforce development, economic development, having worked in an employment security office in Oregon or in other places, understanding how the labor market works is very important for sure. Great. Thanks, James. And I see,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah, I see Jasmine with her hand up. Or is it Jasmine or Yasmin?
Jasmine.
Jasmine. Okay, go ahead.
Hi. I was kind of wondering, it's been mentioned that this is very similar to like a customer service role because of, the way you kind of help businesses, but I was wondering maybe what's kind of like the time split, or how do you balance between sort of the independent research you might put on the website versus like community facing work?
That's a great question. I'm going to ask Brannigan, why don't you address how do you split your time? Thanks, Jasmine.
So that's kind of it depends on requests essentially. If you get multiple data requests or questions from customers, from businesses, you may have to spend your time on that for the next day or two. But then, you might have a day where you wake up, you read the news, and you have no, pending data requests, and you sit down and you dive deep into some data and you get to explore something that you find interesting and maybe form that into a full-on article or just even just a graph of the month on our monthly economic indicators, for example, which to mention that that's most of us do a special graph of the month every month for our economic indicators, and that's kind of a routine moment where you would be able to do analysis, on your own. Um, and so it does vary for sure. I'd say ultimately the priority is to address whatever requests come up, but due to that and the nature of the job is that when a request comes up, that's something that's interesting to one person, and you can build on that and form an article or something else that's interesting to a lot of people. Because usually if one person's asking a question, there's probably multiple businesses who have the same question. So there's a mix and they go hand in hand together ultimately. As far as the like percentage wise, I it's hard to pin it down, but maybe like 60 to 75% sort of like customer requests on the moment, and then the remaining would be, articles or just sort of independently driven research.
Yep, that's great. Thanks for bringing in. Yeah, I didn't mention before, but we do one of our basic parameters or goals is that we respond to all customer requests within 8 business hours or 1 business day. So if they email us on Friday at noon, we will respond by noon on Monday, right? So 8 business hours. And doesn't mean that we will necessarily fill their data request, but we will respond and clarify. Often you have to clarify what they're asking exactly. So because of that is one of the reasons for the position is to provide data to individual customers. So that does become a priority, but you'll go, sometimes you'll get 4, 5, 6 requests in a single day. And then 2 weeks later, you'll get no requests for 3 days, right? And so when you have lower numbers of requests, then you kind of go back and you start working on an article or a research that you were working on earlier. So you just kind of put it down and then pick it up, put it down, pick it up until it's done. So yeah. All right, James Holst, I'm going to get to you in a moment, but I saw a question in the chat that I want to address that was, and let me see if I can find it. From a personal perspective, is anyone willing to address the worst parts of the job? I like that question. And yeah, so Brannigan, or Sean, or Nicole, anybody want to talk about what's the worst part of the job?
I would phrase it as like, what are the challenges?
There you go.
There's one
Yeah.
challenge that comes to mind immediately, and that's where you become kind of a face or the face of OED for some people. And like even yesterday I was giving a presentation in a more rural community, and they're not dealing with people from OED face to face that often, and OED does a lot more than just research and labor
Or
market
I'm
information.
gonna interrupt. OED is Oregon Employment Department.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Right.
so the employment department's in the news sometimes for things not necessarily related to us, and you might, and they might also have interactions with WorkSource or other people, and then you can, field questions from them that are a challenge to me because they're sometimes disappointed with other parts of OED or something like that, and just kind of managing that's not you, but at the same time you have to take that responsibility,
Yep.
and be that face.
Yep. Good. Thank you. All right. let's go to James Holst. Go ahead, James.
Morning. I was just kind of wondering how much like inter-regional and interstate collaboration is there with this kind of work? For instance, like Washington County or like the general Portland Metro might have some collaboration with Vancouver or an adjoining part of a different state which might have a similar workforce background or works in similar industries.
Yeah, we certainly do across state stuff. We are well acquainted with I can't remember at the moment. It's essentially a regional economist in the Vancouver, Washington area, works very closely with our regional economist, Amy Vandervliet, sorry, who is our economist for the Portland metro area. We actually feed into the estimates for the Portland metropolitan statistical area, which includes both Washington side and Portland side, Vancouver, Washington. So we certainly communicate with them often across the state lines, and certainly internally we talk a lot among ourselves. We don't treat these areas as silos. In other words, we know that, and labor. There's the areas, and then there's the labor market area, right? Which don't necessarily follow the same areas. So, for instance, Benton County is currently part of the Northwest Oregon workforce area, but the fact is that Benton County and Lynn County, there is a ton of labor shed sharing between those two. Albany and Corvallis are not only physically close, but a lot of people that live in Albany work in Corvallis and vice versa. So our economists talk to each other a lot about the travel and the interactions between these areas. Labor sheds do not line up with state lines or county lines. So we certainly work with each other, and that is one of the reasons why I have collaborative and desired attributes, because you have to be able to talk to other economists, treat them with respect, listen to what they say, and take their expertise and incorporate it into your knowledge. So, good question, James. Thank you. All right, Douglas Wentz. Go ahead, Douglas.
Yeah, actually, my question was very similar, along similar lines as James's. As I was wondering, even though this is a primarily independent role, how often do we get the chance to collaborate with? It sounds like internally quite often, but also externally with external clients or other like maybe even private groups, and analytics groups, things like that.
Yeah. Nicole, Sean, Brannigan, anybody want to jump in on that one?
I can jump in here. Yeah, there's lots of collaboration within OED, especially within the regional analysis group. Last summer, myself and two other workforce analysts gave a presentation to a coastal caucus group. So it was elected officials from across the whole coast, which covers 3 different workforce regions. So lots of collaboration there. Lots of collaboration within the broader economic analysis group, doing research. One thing, research on the forest sector and maritime is normally a combination of a lot of folks. And then you also do a lot of work when you're doing data requests. A lot of times that is a collaborative process where you're working with a workforce investment board or some group, and you're really working with them to try to answer some sort of question. So even though it's a solo job, you spend a lot of time interfacing with other folks for sure.
You see Bryce. Go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, good morning. Well, I think it is still morning, but I was just wondering if you all could speak a little bit more, particularly about, it seems as though that this position is definitely public facing, but I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about your work and particularly how it might engage with economic development and its policy with local municipalities. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Nicole, who's sitting in EDCO, Economic Development for Central Oregon, to address that. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, for sure. So our work actually, I think, intertwines a lot with their work. For instance, I'm in the office right now, but when we need data for grants, for instance, that helps businesses if they're going to do their own kind of business meetings or business events or something like that, they look to our data. One of the biggest sources is going to be the projections data, actually, which is we have projections data for industries and for occupations. So they'll use that to make, to kind of figure out where their focus should be. Should it be the trade and transportation industry? Are they going to support that industry more than the rest, right? Or is their focus going to be, for instance, leisure and hospitality? So with our data, they make these decisions. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, just multiple customer groups. We work with economic development, we work with WorkSource, we work with a lot of government agencies that do planning, we work with private industries, we work with companies, and media. We also do a lot of media interviews and presentations. In the chat, I saw a question about presentations, how often. Again, it varies. So our Portland economists tend to give the most presentations per year. At the moment, they're giving 20-ish, 25 a year. Depends on the economists. Our more rural economists give maybe 2 or 3 per year. So it varies considerably. And again, that goes back to maybe kind of what Will was asking earlier about how the areas are different. One thing that's different is how we deliver that data can be different in a rural versus a much more urbanized environment. We had economists in the past that have given more than 50 presentations in a year. But often in the more rural areas, it's a much lower number. And I actually just did the data, and so far this year, all of our economists, as for the whole group, are averaging 4 presentations per year for everybody. But that's kind of a deceptive number. Averages don't really explain how it works, how the reality of the world sometimes. So, all right, James. So thank you. Second question, which is great. Oh, go ahead, James.
Well, thank you. I have kind of like a bougie question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. As far as accessibility to resources and tools, are we still kind of like Excel wizards from baseline, or do we have access to like Power BI, Power Query, Tableau, etc.? Or what preferred tools, resources you guys like to use for data analysis, data visualizations, etc.?
Yeah, I will say Excel is still kind of the base default. We use a ton of Excel all the time. It's just Excel every day. And we are total Excel nerds. Nothing, when we see somebody do some really cool stuff with conditional formatting, we're going like, ooh, that's so cool. But that said, we also are learning a lot of other things. So I know Nicole and Brannigan, I think, are you guys in the R group? One of you want to talk about the R group and what that is? Go ahead, Nicole.
And then I'll let Brannigan, because I actually haven't joined in a while. But I did want to mention that there's more than the R groups. There is an R group, and then Brannigan could talk about that further. But we also work with Tableau, for instance, right? So it's not just that. We did have BI tools that's going to be discontinued, but it was there, for instance.
Yep.
I will say that the only thing we are a bit limited, right? Because our data, there's the data on our website. That's not confidential. It's published. So when we're working with other tools, we really have to be careful that we maintain that confidentiality. Right. So I sometimes just prefer to use Excel and our data online instead of like the backend data and these programs. So that's just something to keep in mind. Brannigan, would you like to speak about the R group?
Yeah. And I share the sentiment of often working with just our data right off the internet so that we don't have to worry about confidentiality. But the R users group, they meet about once a month. And it started off as people in OED's research division trying to learn R. And at this point, there's people who are sort of intermediate to expert in R, but then also totally welcome to join if you're brand new. And we just go through like demos. People talk about what have you been up to, and we show each other what we've been doing and how it works. And one really useful thing about R is that it integrates really well with APIs. Like the census data has a really great API. BLS has an API, and you can pull a lot of data like that through R. So I think more and more people are gravitating towards R, and I think it's a growing group that I enjoy being a part of. But it's definitely kind of a unnecessary step. You could do the job entirely with Excel, but it's a growing thing that a lot of people are passionate about for sure.
Yeah. Okay, great question. I just realized we are almost at the end of time. So we do have, I did see Cindy Walling jumped in. Cindy, do you have anything you want to say for the group? And Cindy, again, is our recruiting expert and helper who helps me focus on economic stuff. Go ahead, Cindy.
Yes, and I don't have anything else to add other than, did we already talk about the deadline for the application process? I missed the meeting early on.
Yeah, I did mention that September 15th, midnight, right?
11:59 p.m.
11:59 p.m.
Yeah,
Monday is the deadline for applications. Yep.
absolutely.
Thank you. And then at the end, we're going to have a slide that will have Cindy's email address. So if you have process questions, you can send them to Cindy, and then if it goes to me, she'll just forward it to me.
Absolutely.
Great.
And then Dave, I wanted to mention really quick, just before we wrap up, a little bit about my work with research, just from an equity and inclusion standpoint. So I don't actually work under the Division of Research. I work under the Division of the Office of Equity and Inclusion, but I do support research. And one, if the team already didn't sell itself, they are the most collaborative people that kind of I get to work with. Their team culture is amazing, all very personable people, very receptive and willing and eager to help. And a lot of this work can take some time to get adjusted to, or some of the concepts are new, or it might just take some changes, and they have just been super receptive. But I did want to highlight a lot of the things that we are focusing on for this biennium is accessibility. So anything that gets put out to customers, right? Like we're working on an accessibility guide and make sure that people are getting it in a way that resonates with them, whether that's plain language, right? A lot of the times you're delivering information to people that are not in this like econ data kind of world. And so you have to make sure you present it and deliver it in a way that, that you can meet them where they're at. So accessibility is a big thing that we're working on. The agency is rolling out a data equity framework. And so how are we engaging with data in a more intentional way? And we're asking those questions of who's missing from the data, and so forth. And then part of the recruitment efforts too is actually this open house to demystify a lot of this like applying for the state process and what does that look like, and ensuring that candidates really are getting the information that they need to be able to apply, and they're getting like a more like face-to-face personal connection to who's behind, the kind of the system, the government, the state. So hopefully this has helped just reduce some of those barriers and make it a more welcoming environment for folks to apply. And I can go on, but we are at time. So I just wanted to say that I do work with them in that capacity. We have a DEI committee, and that's kind of where a lot of these discussions take place. And you do have an opportunity to participate in that within research. And then I will just hand it back over to Dave to wrap us up.
All right, great. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, and I will say when I am making my decision, one of the important factors isn't just are you really awesome, because I will have a lot of really awesome applicants, I promise. But how do you fit into my existing skills and perspectives on the team? So I'm a big fan of the concept that team is always smarter than anybody on the team. And I want to be sure that my team has a variety of skills, backgrounds, experiences, and that makes the team better. And then we teach each other what we know. So that is one of the factors that goes into how we decide who to best bring on board. So again, this slide shows a lot of different links for help in the processes. Thank you for that. I stole most of this from Cindy and Teresa in HR. Appreciate that. And then here's kind of the final slide. So if you have further questions, send these, and I saw that in the chat. If you have other questions, just send them there to that email address. Cindy, if it's something that's more for me as the hiring manager, she'll just forward it to me, and then I'll get back to you. All right. Yeah, we are at time. Sorry, I went over a little bit. Thank you, everybody. Love to see. Looks like we got a good turnout today, and hopefully we answered most of your questions. This is the first time we've done this, so if you also, we are open to suggestions on the open house itself. We're planning to repeat this. So, oh, that was a cool clap, like a clap that exploded.